Hi, I'm Lucas Berry for liking the story. He was one of the most influential artists in country music history, and the story came to an end right here in the little town of Oak Hill, West Virginia. Let's take a look at the story of Hank Williams Sr. Hank Williams Sr. was born Hiram Williams on September 17, 1923, in Mount Olive, Alabama. He suffered from a birth defect called spina bifida occulta, which caused him severe pain throughout his life and would play a role in his drug and alcohol abuse. Arguably the biggest event in his musical life came when Hank met a man named Rufus Payne while living in Georgetown, Alabama. Payne gave him guitar lessons in exchange for money or food. Other influences on his music were Roy Acuff and Jimmy Rogers, aka the Singing Brakeman. He was invited to sing live on air on occasion at a local radio station WSFA in Montgomery, Alabama. Listeners loved him so much that the station offered him a chance to host a 15-minute show twice a week for $15 a week. It was from the money he made doing radio that he formed his own band, the Drifting Cowboys. Hank dropped out of school in 1939 so the band could work full-time. When the U.S. entered World War II in 1941, Williams was not eligible for the military due to his back problems after a fall at a rodeo in Texas. All the Drifting Cowboys were drafted into the military, and many of the replacements in the band refused to play due to Hank's alcoholism. He was fired from his radio show in 1942 after he continually showed up drunk. In 1945, he performed again for WSFA, even writing songs weekly to perform on air. He auditioned for the Grand Ole Opry in 1946 but was turned down. He did make it big in 1947 when he signed with MGM Records, and in 1948 became a part of the cast of the Louisiana Hayride, a radio broadcast not unlike the Grand Ole Opry. That helped to bring him into homes across the Southeast, and from then his career grew. He finally got invited to the Grand Ole Opry in 1949 after his version of Lovesick Blues stayed atop the country charts for 4 straight months. He made his opera debut in June 1949 and received 6 encores. It was also in 1949 that his son, Hank Williams Jr., was born. Hank Jr. would go on to have a very successful career in his own right. As the 50s rolled in, the hits kept coming, with songs like Why Don't You Love Me, Loadin' the Blues, and Cold, Cold Heart. His back pain came to the forefront once again after a fall on a hunting trip in November 1951. He started taking painkillers like morphine and continued drinking to ease the pain. 1952 was an eventful year for Hank Williams. His wife Audrey divorced him, and he recorded such hits as Jambalaya on the Bayou, I'll Never Get Out of This World Alive, and Hey Good Lookin'. In August, he was fired as a member of the Grand Ole Opry for habitual drunkenness and missing shows. He did, however, fall back on the Louisiana Hayride after his Opry dismissal. He also married Billie Jean Jones in October 1952. He was scheduled for a show in Charleston, West Virginia on New Year's Eve 1952, but due to an ice storm in the Nashville area, was unable to fly and therefore hired a college student named Charles Carr to drive him. It was determined that he would not be able to make it to West Virginia in time for that New Year's Eve show, so Carr was ordered to drive him to Canton, Ohio for a New Year's Day show there. When they arrived in Knoxville, Tennessee, they checked into the Andrew Johnson Hotel, and it was there where Dr. P.H. Carwell gave Williams 2 shots of vitamin B12 that also contained morphine, after Williams had been feeling the effects of chloral hydrate and alcohol he had been drinking during the trip. Carr and Williams checked out later that day and continued their drive to Ohio. Around midnight, Carr stopped at an all-night restaurant in Bristol, Virginia, and he asked Hank if he wanted something to eat. He said he did not. Those are believed to be his last words. It was at the next stop in Oak Hill, West Virginia, that Hank Williams was discovered dead, aged just 29. An autopsy was performed by Dr. Ivan Malinin at Tybee Funeral Home. Dr. Malinin found the cause of death to be insufficiency of the right ventricle of the heart. That night in Canton, the gathered crowd was told he was dead and initially thought it was a joke and started laughing. It was only after other performers started singing I Saw the Light that they realized he was in fact dead. Legend has it that Charles Carr pulled in right here at the Skyline Drive-In. Found Hank Williams unresponsive, was told there was a hospital 6 miles down the road in Oak Hill, so he drove there. What you are seeing now is the drive from the Skyline Drive-In to Oak Hill, West Virginia, as it is in 2020. We made this drive at about 2 p.m., whereas the actual events took place sometime around 6:30 that morning. The 4-lane highway that we get on is US 19, and it was not there in 1953. back behind me, you can't tell it now, but there used to be a gas station right there. That is where they took Hank Williams once Charles Carr got word to go into town, and that is in fact where they stopped. At that point, the Oak Hill police were called, and they told him to take him to a hospital right up the road. We'll go there in just a second. In the 50s, that was called Oak Hill Hospital. That's where they took Hank Williams' body after he had been discovered dead. His funeral took place on January 4, 1953 in Montgomery, Alabama. It's estimated that 15,000 to 20,000 people passed by the coffin, and the auditorium was filled with over 2,000 mourners. It is said to be the largest event ever held in Montgomery, and the largest funeral ever held for a citizen of Alabama. He is buried at the Oakwood Annex in Montgomery. Perhaps the most chilling part of this story is that his last single, the one that was on the charts when he died, was "I'll Never Get Out of This World Alive." He had 11 number one singles over his career, and is widely regarded as one of the most influential artists in country music history.